the shiur is divided into two parts. The first part, we're talking about ideas. We're looking at the Gemara, describing, really in the terms of the Gemara, things to avoid, meaning what's bad. And then we're going to look also at Gemara to see what's good. But not talking about a particular activity, but talk about guidelines to identify an environment that's good and guidelines that could help us identify an environment that is bad. That's how we're going to start, by looking at some sources on that topic. But then, after we've spoken about the guidelines, then we're going to go into some very, very specific activities. We're going to go into modern leisure activities, and we're going to discuss what's good and what's perhaps not so good. I think that today's topic is such an important topic because, first of all, we're coming towards the end of Zman, and shortly we're going to have a vacation without any chagim in it. And it's always important to think about how we spend that vacation time in a productive way. So I'm going to, before we start with our two sections, let me start with the Gemara in Eruvin. On source number 1, the Gemara in Eruvin says, in the names of Rabbi Eli, Omer Rabbi Eli, Shloshad b'shloshad dvarim adam nikar. There are 3 indicators that reveal the character of a person. And they are koso, his cup, meaning how much does he drink? But I think that's really talking about drinking alcohol, meaning, how am I sort of in my alcohol? Is that something that it's in control? Koso, number 1. Kiso is his pocket, but that's talking about his money. How does he use his money? And the third one is ka'aso. How does he behave when he's angry?
Clever.
But you see that? Koso, kiso, ka'aso. It's like alliteration, exactly. But then va'omrile, and there are people who add to the words of Rabbi Eli, and this is really the thing I want to talk about. Af b'sochko. Sochko means you can see who a person is through how they behave in their free time. It's incredibly true. It's a fantastic indicator. I know, I used to say, it's still true. When I was a child, I'll share. When I was a child, we used to have these tablets when you would brush your teeth. We used to brush our teeth in the evenings and the mornings, but after we finished brushing our teeth, my mother would give us these tablets, and we would chew these tablets, and then after you chew the tablets would have a dye, and whichever bit of my mouth I didn't brush fully, I would then open my mouth and see, you missed here, you missed there, and we learned how to brush our teeth properly by brushing our teeth, chewing the tablet, and then after you chew the tablet, you open your mouth, have a look around, and see how well you did. You follow? Now, I think that process is a very useful model or mashal to explain what Bein Hazmanim is. Bein Hazmanim, when you're out of the yeshiva framework, is a time for you to discover who you are. During yeshiva time, because you're all superstars, everyone is here. You get up for shacharit, because that's what time shacharit is, and then there's classes, and then there's lunch, and then there's maybe a little break, and then after that ulpan or classes, and then a few more classes, and a bit of dinner, mariv, etc. Your schedule is very, very fixed. Like we're in an institution. You are more than an institution. You're in the palace of the king. But it's a very regimented life. But then, in a few weeks' time, it's going to be Bein Hazmanim. And do you know what happens in Bein Hazmanim? So you get up and you daven shacharit, and then, I could do anything. Like, what am I going to do now? I don't know, how am I going to fill my day? And it's so interesting for us during our spare time, during the Bein Hazmanim, for us to learn who we are. Like, how did I utilize my time? And I think Bein Hazmanim is a little bit like chewing the tablet. Then after Bein Hazmanim, I open up and I see, wow, I was strong here. Over here, it wasn't so great. I look at how, at the end of Bein Hazmanim, I look at who was Yisrael Bein Hazmanim, or Yosef Bein Hazmanim, or Zachariah Bein Hazmanim, who was that person? And then I learn, as I enter the next month, what I might want to tweak. You follow? But it's all based on this lovely statement of Rabbi Eli, that in addition to koso, kiso, and kaso, in addition to his cup, his pocket, and his anger, also sochko, which means the stuff that I do when I'm not studying. How do I utilize my free time is a beautiful way for us to learn who we are and who the people around us are. You follow? So it's so interesting, because I don't know, we meet our teachers in the Beit Midrash, in the yeshiva. But wouldn't you love to go on holiday with some of the teachers just to see what's it like? What do they do? What are they doing when they're not in the Beit Midrash? We would learn so much. We do indeed learn so much from the way our teachers behave, not only in the Beit Midrash and in Shiurim, but we learn from them when we just spend time with them and their families during their free time. You learn so much about, how to behave from great people during their free time, as well as obviously during their shiurim. Is that clear to you? Okay, so with that introduction, we're going to look at two environments. The first environment is one to avoid. Second environment is the one to stick with. And then after that introduction, we'll then go through various activities and discuss good, bad, appropriate, inappropriate. What do you think? Okay. So the first section, I feel so bad. I have to apologize. We've got over here, do you see the first section here is called the wrong place? And then the next section is called the right place. Oy. How could we have started with the wrong? We should start with the right. So I apologize for starting with the negative. But we're going to say it's sur meirav aseh tov. Okay. So this is the verses in the book of Psalms. In fact, it is the very first verses of the book of Psalms. Tehillim, Perek Aleph, Pasuk Aleph. Says, Ashrei ha'ish, asher lo halach ba'atzat risha'im, uvederech chata'im lo amad, uvumoshav leitzim lo yashav. Ki im b'torat Hashem chevtzo, uvutorato yehege yomam v'layla. Okay, so he says, praise be a person who didn't go in the counsel of evil people, uvederech risha'im, and in the path of the wicked, uvumoshav leitzim lo yashav, and he didn't spend time with a moshav leitzim. Moshav leitzim is just a leitzanim, a clown, just like people who are just faffing around, but not doing anything productive with their time. Okay, on these psukim, these psukim are quoted by a Braita in Masechet Avodah Zarah. So the Braita tells us in Avodah Zarah, this is source number 3, Tanu Rabbanan, our rabbis taught, Haolech le'itztadion, or lekarakum, that could be a circus. Someone who goes to a stadium or a circus. So this is obviously, the Gemara is talking at the time of the Romans, where you had these big stadiums. Wasn't it the Romans that sort of invented that sort of gathering? V'ra'a sham et ha'nechashim ve'et ha'chavarin, they saw like snake fights and other things. Bokion u'mokion u'molion ve'lulin, they see all these outrageous things. Harei zeh moshav leitzim. They're not, it's just like pointless. And concerning them, the Torah tells us, Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach. Praise be a person who avoids all this stuff. Ki im b'torat Hashem chevto, because his desire is Torah. If you were to involve yourself in these activities, it would draw you away from Torah. So Rashi says after this, it's so difficult. What's a stadium? Makom shemenagchin et hashor. It's a bullfight. And what's a karkum, a circus? Matzor v'osin sham schok v'leitzanut. See, schok v'leitzanut is just clowning around. Schok v'leitzanut is clowning around, which links to what we were saying just beforehand. Schok v'leitzanut is bad. However, we saw from the Gemara in Ta'anit and Rabbi Baroka that went to the Shuk and met these Anshe Beduche, that there is something good. Mile de Beduche, Anshe Beduche, these people that have a share in the world to come because they are Anshe Beduche. But then on the other hand, you have Schok V'leitzanut, which is terrible, like clowning around. Okay, so that's the place to avoid. But then what the pasuk tells us, "B'Torah Hashem chevtzo, v'Torato yekei yomam v'layla." You have to immerse yourself at all times in learning Torah. So if I look over here in the very first sources, it would seem that there's little justification to be doing things other than learning Torah, right? However, I want to go to some more sources. Let's have a look at the Gemara in Brachot. The Gemara in Brachot tells us this. Shlosha marchivin da'ato shel olam. There are three things that expand a person's mind. Ve'elu hein, and they are dira na'eh. Dira na'eh means enjoyable, like a comfortable home. Isha na'eh, a good wife. Ve'kelim na'im, and sort of, like to have a comfortable appliances. Like to live luxury, to live in comfort. When I'm able to live in comfort, zeh marchiv da'ato shel adam, expands a person's mind. On this statement of the Gemara in Brachot, I want to look at two commentaries who say quite similar things. The first one is the Rambam. The Rambam quotes this statement from the Gemara in Brachot. He quotes it in his introduction to Pirkei Avot. That's the first thing we're going to look at. And then after that, as you may well know, Rav Kook wrote a commentary on Agadata. And he wrote a commentary on Agadata, on Masechet Brachot, and on Masechet Shabbat. So we're going to look at Rav Kook's understanding of this phrase. But let's start with the Rambam. The Rambam says like this: Dira na'ev isha na'em u'tamidei chachamim ki anefesh til'ah. Our souls, the soul gets tired. Just like the body gets tired, our souls get tired. And your mind will get exhausted if it's always focused on difficult things. The soul is like the body, and just like you can't, you have to sit down every once in a while to give your body a rest, you have to also involve yourselves in activities that give your soul a rest too. The soul gets tired just like the body gets tired. Ad sheyanuach v'yishkot. You follow? It just needs to rest and to be quiet. Va'az yachzor l'shivyav, and then it will return back to function normally. Sometimes you need to rest your senses. Sometimes you get it by looking at art. This is histaklut b'tziurim, like a certain art or other things to look at, just like to calm your mind, to allow your mind to rest. If sitting down rests your body, so there are also activities that we do in order to calm our souls. The Rambam says, looking at art, Ad shetasur mimeno halitut kamo she'amru ki chashay rabbanan mikirusa. The rabbis get tired from studying all the time. Okay, so according to the Rambam, when he says Dira na'eh, isha na'eh, v'kelim na'eh, when he talks about, like these harchavat hadat, that sometimes just spending time with creature comforts, just I don't know, like watching the sunset on the ocean or whatever it is, just those moments of Dira na'eh, kelim na'im, that allows me to recharge my soul, just like I need time to recharge my body. You hear that? Now, Rav Kook, we're going to look at Rav Kook later also on the topic of what to do, but over here he understands this Gemara in a very interesting way. You know that Rav Kook was he was everything, because Rav Kook he wrote books of halakha, wrote commentary on Agadah. He understood all areas of knowledge. So he understood art and he understood science, appreciated art, as we're going to see later on in this little booklet here. So when he talks about this Dira na'eh and Isha na'eh and Kelim na'im, he says, Kol rikshei hayofi heim tovim umarchivim et hanefesh. All of the expressions of beauty, all aspects of beauty are good, and they widen our soul, like they expand our souls. Umishil hu tzadik tamim, and someone who is a righteous person, shemishmaish bahem b'derech yishara, and I use this beauty in the right way, vaday hu davar tov na'im, that's clearly a good and pleasant thing. Ki lo lechinam livra harekesh hagadol hazeh b'adam. God created us with this need to take a break, meaning bein hazmanim is necessary. Otherwise, your mind will just explode. You need to rest the body and rest the soul too. That's how Hashem creates us. And as somebody who is a tzaddik tamim, a righteous person, can experience beauty and use that beauty to enhance his soul. The trouble with beauty is it can also lure somebody into ta'avot, which is a bad thing. But assuming it's a tzaddik gamur, like a holy person, so then they can enjoy the good things in the world, and we are all striving in that direction. So we should enjoy the beauty of this world and use our, our moments when I'm able to contemplate beauty. I should use that to la'archiv da'ati, to expand my soul. V'lo od ela she'rikshei hayofi heim מפתחים את כוחות השכל ומגדילים גם כן את כוחות הנפש הטובים. Not only is it an opportunity to rest, but it expands myself, and often after I rest, I'm capable of things that I wasn't capable of previously. I mean, it's not just, when you're tired, you sit down and you rest your body. But then when I get up, I return to, the body that was, that existed beforehand. But here, my body is nurtured by beautiful things in the world. And maybe my soul is not just invigorated, but it's able to reach new heights as a result of experiencing this beauty in the world. It's more than just allowing me to rest, but it expands my horizons. You follow? Does that make sense to you? My creativity and all these positive aspects of who I am get greater. Okay, that's Rav Kook. Okay, so we see after our first section, we're now going to start going through some activities. We see that there is good and there's bad. Meaning, it's very, very important, it seems, from the Gemara in Brachot, the necessity for a break. For a necessity not to spend 24/7 involved in study, but just like the body needs to rest, the soul needs to rest too, and the soul will be capable of greater things as a result of that rest. So the rest is essential. We see that from the Gemara in Brachot, as explained by the Rambam and also by Rav Kook. But then, on the other hand, we see that, whenever you close your Gemara, there's a danger that you might fall into a moshav leitzim. You follow? And therefore, I'm always hesitant to close my Gemara because I don't want to fall into this Moshav Leitim. So I have to get it right. You follow? And it's essential. It's very, very interesting because when things are bad, so then you have to avoid them because they're only going to cause harm. You follow? And when things are good, so then I need to embrace them because they are wholly good. But here we see that I need to close my Gemara because just like the body gets tired, the mind gets tired, your soul gets tired. So I at some point I need to close the Gemara. At some point there's going to be a Bein Hazmanim. At some time I'm going to take a break. But I'm playing with fire at that moment because if I get it right, like Rav Kook described, I can use this as a spiritual experience, and when I come back afterwards, I'm in a better position than I was when I closed, when I ended. But if I don't want to say. You understand what I'm saying? It could go the other way too. And that's why it becomes so important to make sure we get it right. Okay, so what I'd like to do now, I'd like to go through various activities through the ages of rabbis that were asked at different times, is this activity appropriate? Is that activity appropriate? And we'll see through the questions being asked to each of these rabbis, we'll see them struggling mamash with that tension. On the one hand, you have to have a break. But on the other hand, if you get the break wrong, that could cause terrible damage to your spiritual growth. Okay. So the first example is from the Noda B'Yehuda. I'm going to ask the question and you can tell me what you think. Okay, just to put this into context, the Noda B'Yehuda lived in the 18th century. In the 18th century in Prague. As you may know, there was a beginning of emancipation. The Jews who had lived for centuries in ghettos and cut off from the general population, Jews started to integrate into general society. And the rabbi who was there at that time, the chief rabbi of Prague at that moment, the Noda B'Yehuda, Rabbi Yisrael Landau, who lived during the 18th century, born towards the beginning, and died, I think, 1780s. So he, Rav Yechezkel Landau, was asked questions that had never been asked before. I'll just tell you one little thing about him. His name was Rav Yechezkel Landau. So if his name was Rav Yechezkel Landau, why is the book called Noda B'Yehuda? Should be Noda B'Yechezkel, not Noda B'Yehuda. So you call the book Noda B'Yehuda because his father was called Yehuda, and the book was written as an act of respect, as an act of kibud avoim. He called his book in the name of his father. He also wrote another book in the name of his mother. But let's go to the Noda B'Yehuda, our topic for today. So he writes like this: Michtavo kibalti, I received your question. Eineni makiro, but I don't know you. I mean, you're not somebody I know personally. He developed a reputation, and therefore people were writing questions to him from all over Europe for his halachic guidance. Okay, shoresh she'elato. This is the question. Ish echad. There is a guy, Asher Zachahu Hashem Benachala Rechava. Something that never happened before. There was this Jewish person that owned a huge plot of land. V'yesh lo kfarim v'ya'arot asher v'ya'arot tirmos kol chayato yar. He owned huge forests in his land. Do you understand? This is a question that could not have been asked 100 years previously. Because 100 years previously, the Jews lived in their small little ghettos. They weren't expanding into general society. But this was a question that had never been asked before, because Jews had never owned land. The idea of a Jew owning forests was unheard of. He asks, Ha'im mutar lo, is it permitted to go, lelech, Lirot bekaneh sreifa. Do you know what kaneh sreifa is? A kaneh sreifa is a tube of fire. A tube of fire is how they called a gun. Can he take his gun, latzud side, to go hunting with his friends, or im asur li Yisrael lasot davar zeh, mishum tzar balecham, because it's causing pain to animals, or mishum bal tashchit? Okay, is it forbidden? Now, I just want to tell you two things that he says, and then tell me what you think about his answer. So the question that this person is asking the Nodab Yudah is, am I allowed to go hunting? Am I, as a Jew, is that against the halakha to go hunting? Is it a problem of causing pain to animals, tzar balei, or is it a problem of bal tashchit? Bal tashchit is wanton destruction. Now, I just want to to focus our discussion. The Nodab Yehuda says there's not a problem of tzar balei. It's not a problem of causing pain to animals. And the reason why it's not a problem of causing pain to animals is because it's not for no. But I mean, causing pain to an animal is just stum. If you're like kids, when they would it's terrible. If you had like a microscope, like a magnifying glass, and they would take a fire and then burn insects. That's tsar bali chaim. It's just like a pain for pain's sake. But hunting is a sport, it's an activity. I'm not doing it to cause pain. I'm doing it because that's a fun activity. So the Nodab Yudah says, it's not a problem with Tsar Bali Chaim. And then the problem of Bal Tashchit is wanton destruction. Same thing. Wanton destruction is like to break something for no reason. So if I have a plate and I just break the plate for no reason, that's Bal Tashchit. But if, let's say, I have a plate and I'm furious and breaking the plate will calm me down, so that's not Bal Tashchit because it's serving a fight, it's allowing me to calm down. It may not be healthy, I'm not recommending it in any way, but just in order to understand the limitations of these halachot is only when it's pointless. But it's not pointless, it's part of a sport, it's what all the chevra do on a Sunday morning. So the question asked to the Nodab Yehuda is, am I allowed to go hunting? Is that more like the Moshav Leitzim and therefore forbidden? Or is it more like the Harchavat Dat and sort of like to give me a bit of a break? Matem Choshvim. Question clear? Anyone have any thoughts?
Can I ask a question? Because I didn't was not here when
we missed
hunting for the reason of because I needed some food. It's okay.
He's not. No, he's doing it. It's a sport. It's a sport. Yeah. Right.
I don't like to cause suffering.
Oh, shalom. Animals. What pleasure to meet you. Shalom uvracha.
Shalom.
Ken.
No, I'm thinking I don't like to cause suffering to animals. I think they are innocent. Just for if I really need to kill for survive. But no.
You think it's a bad? You shouldn't be allowed. You can't just kill an animal. Are you crazy? That's what you're saying.
What?
You're saying you're not allowed to. It's not allowed.
No, only for if in this case only for survive.
Right.
Not for sport.
Right.
Why can I have pleasure killing animals?
Excellent.
I don't like it.
Yeah, that's an unhealthy pleasure. Therefore, it's wrong. Anyone? Any other comments?
Yeah.
Anyone disagree? What's your name?
Chaim.
Chaim. Anyone disagree with Chaim?
No, I agree with them.
Oh, Nachshon.
I think that in the hierarchy of creation, man takes the highest spot, right? So, if in this case, the man's need is for self-expression, then maybe yes, the Nodab Yehuda might have that to lean on, like, because
Right.
you're the highest form of creation, and
Yeah,
animals
fair
are
mod.
supposed to serve for your purposes.
Excellent. Nachshon, thank you. Excellent point. The answer the Nodabi Yudah gives is actually surprising because it follows the position of Nachshon, but with a twist that leads towards Chaim at the end. He says, it's a legitimate activity. It gives me, it's fun. It's not me personally, it's not my cup of tea, but we're allowed to engage in leisure activities. You know what I mean? If somebody enjoys flying, that causes havoc to the environment, or somebody enjoys going fishing just for the fun of fishing, and then they, I don't know, throw the fish back and it survives or it doesn't survive. Nobody questions whether that's permitted or not. I get 3 hours to sit in the river and have fun doing fishing, but I don't actually want fish. So that's also just like ending a life for no purpose, and then throwing away the fish afterwards. Why is that any different? And the truth is, that's really what the Nodabi Yudah says. However, is that clear to everybody so far? So his position, it follows Nachshon. It's very interesting because it's not a problem of Tsar Baalei Chaim. It's also not a problem of Baal Tashchit. It's a legitimate leisure activity. So why is it wrong? Why does he follow Chaim in the end? So he says very interestingly. Oh, he says, the truth, I think I've missed out. It's a long tshuva, I think I've missed out the important part. But then I'll read the bottom bit at the end. I'll tell you what he says. And this is a very, very important measure for us to decide whether an activity is permitted or not. In a sterile environment, meaning if you were to ask without any context, am I allowed to go hunting as a leisure activity? Halachically, following Nachshon, the answer is yes. So why do we not go hunting? So the Nodabi Yudah says, if we look in the Tanakh, who are the hunters? Meaning, who are the people whose leisure activity is hunting? They are Esav, exactly, Nimrod. The people that were involved in hunting are people with whom I do not want to identify. So the problem with hunting is not the hunting, but becoming a hunter means that I identify with a particular subculture. And that subculture, as we learn in the Torah, is not a subculture that is close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You follow? It's a very, very nuanced answer of the Nodabi Yudah. He says at the end, 1 second. Kol tzeda, any hunting, shehila simcha ba'alma, just for the pleasure, is moshav leitzim. Ve'eno zocheh lezimchat livyatan. They won't merit to feast on the meal of the livyatan at the coming of the Moshiach. So what's he saying? He's saying, it goes a little bit back to the moshav leitzim. Who are the people in current society who go hunting? It's not just about, is the activity kosher or is the activity not kosher? The question is, with which subgroup in society am I identifying when I involve myself in that activity? You follow? And therefore, hunting is forbidden, not because of Tsar Baalei Chaim, and also not because of Baal Tashchit, but because it's an activity in which I would identify within a subgroup in society that's really not our cup of tea. Is that clear to everybody? Okay, example number 1. That is from the 17th century. Almost all the following examples are from the 20th century, even the 21st century. Okay, next question. The next question is source number 9 from Rav Moshe Feinstein. So he asks, Ha'im asur, is it forbidden, mitzad uv'chukoteim lo telechu, lalechet letiatron, v'tztadion sport biyamenu? Are we allowed nowadays to go to the theatre or to go to watch a football game? Is that an activity that is moshav leitzim? Or is that harchavat hadat? Meaning, is that more in this category, moshav leitzim, or we harchavat hadat, the soul needs to rest too, and we're going to come back invigorated after watching that football game? You hear the question? Anyone want to share any tovanot on that question before we read what Rav Moshe Feinstein has to say? You what? We can go. Okay. Oh, thank you, Hananel. Excellent. Let's read what he says, Rav Moshe Feinstein. Rav Moshe Feinstein, just to remind you all, lived in America. He lived in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. So when he is writing about a football game, he's probably talking about a football game in North America. And if he's talking about the theatre, well, isn't that like a, what street has all the, in Manhattan, isn't there one area with lots of theatres on it?
Broadway.
Huh? Broadway. Yes, so he was in like a walking distance of Broadway. So when he speaks about theatre, he's talking about Broadway. When he's talking about the Mets. Is that right? Is that the New York team? I'm so excited that no one knows it. That's amazing.
It's Mets.
Oh no, I was a charia.
You're right, though. That's good.
Oy. Hashem Yirachim. No, but I like not knowing. Okay. Be'elu shenikru teatron she'osim sham inyanei schok. You see that schok again, where they're just fooling around. V'chein yisonot shehem hamakomot shemisachkim sport lo shaychi behu inyan shel uvuchukotehem lo telechon. Tehu davke kishu chok la'akum la'asot davar eze davar ba'ama'av she'ein ze michukei avodah zora shelahem. So, uvuchukotehem lo telechon, not following in the ways of the non-Jews, is only forbidden when the activity that I'm doing has some echo of religious significance. So, for example, if I were to go to a New Year's Eve party, that would be forbidden, even if there's no religious aspect to the party, because the new year is, we'll enter the year. I'm not talking about Rosh Hashanah evening, but I'm talking about the 31st of December. If I were to go to commemorate between 2024 and 2025, we're saying there's 2024 years since the death of Oto Ha'ish, and now it's going to be 2025 years since the death of Oto Ha'ish. That is Uvechukotehem lo telechun. But to go to the theatre or to go to a football game, there's no religious part to that experience. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people can go, but it's not a religious experience, and therefore Uvechukotehem lo telechun is not going to be a problem for following Hananel. It's not going to be a problem because there's no religious basis to it. Is that clear? However, he does continue, and he says like this: Chidmumani, it appears to me, שהכומרים דאומנות הנוצרים שהיא עתה אמונת רוב אומות העולם, נמי לא ניחא להו ענייני התיאטרון והאצטדיון, גם לא ניחא בזה לאנשי אומנות המוחמדים, שהוא אמונת מדינות טורקי וכל מדינות ערב, שאם כן, רוב המדינות שבהם נמצאים תיאטרון ואצטדיון לא שייכים כלל לאמונותיהם, שבוודאי לא שייכי להלן ובחרותי ולא דלקון, אלא אם מאיסור ליצנות וביטול תורה. The only issue you have to think about is it going to be an issue of ליצנות וביטול תורה? וגם עוד איסור גדול יש, the problem of arayot. Is it going to be a place that's bad languages? Is it going to be a place where people are dressed appropriately? So there are two issues in going to the theatre and two issues in going to a football match. The first issue is the issue of tzniut, like is it appropriate or is it inappropriate? And the second issue is it going to be milei de beduche, which is great, Anshe Beduche, who have a share in the world to come? Is that who you're going to see? Or are we going to go to a Moshav Leitzim? You follow? Now, it's so difficult because when you're in it, you're in it. You know what I mean? You can't always tell, but when you're in one or the other. I remember when Hannah and I, when we first got married, we were students in London, and they used to have this amazing offer. You know that London West End is everyone goes to the theatre, so they used to have whenever there was a show in the West End. If you had a student card to say you were studying in one of the universities in London, you could get a student standby tickets. So let's say you could have a show that normally costs, I don't know, £100, £200 for a ticket. Yeah. But then you come student standby half an hour before the show. They're not going to sell any tickets. So then they would give them out for £5 to students on this student standby thing. So it was quite, students saying, okay, you'd go out. And then if we got to go to a show, we'd go. If we didn't, so then, no one was ill that was planning on going to the show. So then we wouldn't go. But we used to go to the theatre and we would ask, is the language appropriate for a 10-year-old? Because didn't want to have swearing, because it's not and was that, the clothing that people wear, is it appropriate for children? And they used to say, well, the themes aren't really children's themes, but the clothing is, appropriate. Because when you go to the theatre, you want to make sure that it's tsanua, and that the language is clean. But if the language is clean and the clothes are appropriate, so then it's a perfectly acceptable activity to do. And then as long as it's milei de beduche rather than moshav leitzim. Now, I hate to say this, I personally don't follow football very much.
Which football?
Well, in England we have football with your feet, as opposed to whatever Americans do.
Yeah, we play football with our hands.
Yeah, no, I don't mean to be rude.
Person.
Yeah, I don't mean to be rude. That really doesn't sound at all normal. But for them, I imagine it's probably a really, really serious thing. It's not milei de beduche at all. It's sort of life and death for those people. But then the only question about going to a football game, really following Hananel a few minutes ago, the only question is it appropriate? Is it leitzanut? Is it people dressed appropriately? Is the language good? If the language is good, the clothing is good, and it's not schok and leitzanut, so then theatre is good. Football games are good. I mean, they're boring. I'm sorry to say that to anyone but it's all. It will all be appropriate activities to do, according to Rav Moshe Feinstein. Is that clear to everybody? Any comments on that? Okay, let's move on to our next activity. The next activity is very, very cute. Over here, the Gemara talks about playing chess. The Shulchan Aruch talks about, are you allowed to play chess on Shabbat? So the Shulchan Aruch, if you have a look in source number 10, Orach Chaim Shimon Shin Lamed Chet. Shimon Lamed Chet is Shabbat, Hilchot Shabbat. So he says, look at this. Mutar, you're allowed to play Batsamot Shekorim Ashich. I think that's Czech. You're allowed to play this game with pieces called chess. Afal pi shemashmiim kol, even if they make a noise. Don't know why they would. Hoil ve'eino mitkavein nashir, because you're not planning on making the noise. V'kol zeh b'schok derech schok ba'alma, aval lischok ketei laharviach. If you're playing for money, then it's forbidden. But if you're just playing chess for the fun of playing chess, then it's absolutely permitted. That is from the Shulchan Aruch. But if you go to the Mishnah Brura, the Mishnah Brura quotes two positions concerning chess, and the two positions couldn't be further from one another about the idea of playing chess on Shabbat. It's so interesting. It says like this. One position is, Noagim, people have a custom, La'asotan shel kesef, shiyu miyuchadim l'Shabbat. De'im lokein michsi ku'uvde decho. There are some people, do you hear this? There are some people who say you should have a special chess set to play on Shabbat. Isn't that beautiful? So I have my chess set that I play during the week, but if I enjoy chess, then I have my chess set that I play Lichvod Shabbat Kodesh, and that would be great. So it's sort of, like, according to one opinion quoted by the Mishnah Berurah, the Shulchan Aruch says you're allowed to play chess, and the Mishnah Berurah adds, more than that, you can make playing chess into a Shabbat activity. If during the week I have my plastic pieces, on Shabbat I get out my silver chess set to play Lichvod Shabbat Kodesh. You hear that? Now chess would really seem to fit in very beautifully. So, the things we were discussing earlier about resting and, like breaking and having although the truth is, if you're a good chess player, it's probably not resting your mind so much, just using your mind in a different direction. But it's certainly taking a break from Gemara. It seems to be a legitimate reason to close your Gemara, to take out your Shabbos chess set and play chess on Shabbat. You follow? However, the other position is the polar opposite. He quotes a Rabbi Sasson, and he says, "Kivan she'ein to'elet b'idet chokhmat haschok, hahu v'odin chol minei schok, asur." He says, I don't think you should be playing chess on Shabbos, and the truth is, I don't think you should even be playing chess during the week. So you have two positions, both quoted by the Mishnah Berurah. One position says play chess during the week, and then on Shabbat get out your Shabbos chess set. And then the second position say you shouldn't be playing chess ever, because you should be, it's not resting your mind to play chess. Yeah. If you want to rest your mind, like watch a sunset or go for a walk in the park.
It's not a good break from Gemara. It's using the same.
Same
part
like
of the
the point is, like we say, your body gets tired, so then you sit down, and the soul also needs to rest. So a chess, it seems to be, I don't know. I wonder whether it's a machloket on like the impact of playing chess. So I don't play chess, but it could be there are some people that play chess and it invigorates them, and then they've got more energy to learn later. And there are other people that chess is using the same muscle as I used to learn, so you might as well just learn Gemara. It's not a break. And I wonder whether the answer is really depends on what chess does for you. Everybody agrees you need to rest. According to the first rabbi, it helps so much. You need to get your Shabbos chess set. And for other people, it's different. I know when I was in yeshiva many years ago, my roommate loved chess. He loved chess. In fact, sometimes he would play chess with other people without a board. They would just, the piece, and then you go like knight d4, or I don't know what, they would have the game in their heads, and they would play chess like that. And it was, for him, chess was amazing. Sort of like you're exhausted, and then he'd have energy to play a game of chess, and then he was invigorated, and then he could go back to learn Gemara. So I think the machloket is not a machloket like in opinions. It's not like what Rabbi A says this and Rabbi A says that. I think that their rulings are more an indication of their relationship with chess. You follow? Rather than is chess good or chess bad. For those people for whom it's invigorating, so then buy your Shabbos chess set. And for those people for whom it's not invigorating, but just I'm exhausted and I got no energy to play chess, so then if you're exhausted, so then don't exhaust yourself further by playing chess. You follow? But it's an argument in mitziyut rather than in halacha. Does that make sense? Okay. That is example number 2. Example number 3 is from Rav Ovadia Yosef. I'm just thinking how we're doing. Okay. Let's go through this. Oh no, okay, he asked, his question, Yechavedat Rav Ovadia Yosef, is in source number 12, wrote a book of responsa called Yechavedat. Yechavedat is a book based on questions that he was asked on a weekly radio phone-in. So people would call Rav Ovadia and they would ask him questions on the radio, and he would answer their questions, and then his son took the transcripts of these radio shows and turned it into a 6-volume book of responsa called Yechaveh Da'at. So Yechaveh Da'at is beautiful, practical halacha. You have the depth of knowledge of Rav Ovadia Yosef, which is encyclopedic knowledge of halacha, on very practical questions, because he was always answering people's questions. So, his question, they asked him, are you allowed to go and watch a bullfight? We already know that you're not allowed to, right? Because we saw that earlier on. We saw that in the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, nachon? That you're not allowed to go. We spoke about the Istadion is makom shemnachim et hashor. You can't go to the stadiums. At the time of the Gemara, a stadium was a place where they did bullfights. So we know, he's got the questioners, we know the answer, we saw it earlier. However, Rav Ovadia uses this question about going to a bullfight to speak about other leisure activities. And that's what I want to talk about now. So Rav Ovadia says, like this, Nir'ah, it appears to me, She'adavar barur, it is perfectly clear, Lahatir lalechet legan chayot. You're allowed to go to a zoo, Ulehistakel bivriyoto shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and look at this amazing creation in which we live. Ki nafsho shel adam mitpaelet ma'od mibriyato, miriato ma'aseh adav shel haboreh. We get blown away. Have you ever seen a hippo? It's amazing. I could look at a hippo for hours. Look at an elephant, or watch, a zebra or a giraffe. You just like watching animals is just a fascinating thing to see. That's very much in line with what we saw previously in the words of Rav Kook, Harchavat Hadat. It's just fascinating. We're drawn to these things. So although Rav Ovadia forbade people to go to Rav Ovadia forbade people from going to a bullfight. However, he looked very differently about going to the zoo. It's a fantastic example of looking at the animal, looking at the God's world. He even quotes over here, if I remember, maybe I took it out of the source sheet, but there's a story about. Oh, here we are, Maran HaChidah. The Chidah tells us that when he visited London, Biker began chayot, v'ra'asham chayot shonot u'meshunot, that the Chidah had free time, this great rabbi had free time, 19th century, and how did he spend his free time? He went to London Zoo. Now I got very excited when I read this in Rav Ovadia, because when I was a kid in London, we used to go every once in a while on school outings to the London Zoo. So I feel we're going in the footsteps of our great teachers to go to the London Zoo in order to, we're drawn to look at these Masei Atav Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But when I look at animals in my free time, when you go to a zoo, you don't just see, oh, that isn't a hippo amazing, or isn't the giraffe, like a fascinating little creature there, or quite big creature. But you see the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You follow? When I go to the zoo, it is part of strengthening my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I could work all year, like developing my kesher with HaKadosh Baruch Hu through learning Gemara, and then I go to Bein Hazmanim, and I go to visit the zoo, and I'm continuing on that same path of strengthening my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu by looking at his creations. So here we're coming to an even higher level of recreation activities, because I'm not just talking about refreshing, but I'm talking about continuing my learning experience just in a different context. Anytime we look at any natural phenomena, we're just blown away by the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that just fits in beautifully with our Zman activity. Our Bein Hazmanim Tiolim, especially in the Holy Land, our Bein Hazmanim Tiolim are a continuation of our learning in the Beit HaMidrash. Atem shomim et zeh? Okay, I want to add one more source, and then we'll stop. But you will have I think the last two are in English that you can read to yourselves. Oh, well, I want to focus on Rav Kook. Talk about, I was just blown away by this thing by Rav Kook. It's supposed to be a picture. It didn't come out very well. In fact, can any of you see, is there a picture? Do you see, it's a Rembrandt painting that Rav Kook visited in London. Would anyone like to read what Rav Kook said about, Rav Kook came to London before the outbreak of the First World War. And then the First World War broke out and he got stuck in London. He couldn't get back to Israel. And they asked him, if you live in the Holy Land, where are you getting your inspiration? London is not Yerushalayim, not even Tel Aviv, Yafo, where he lived at the time. So how are you coping in that dreary place, London, when you could be in Eretz Yisrael? So this is his answer. Would somebody read Rav Kook in source number 13? Thank you.
When I live in London, I would visit the National Gallery. And the paintings that I loved the most were those of Rembrandt. In my opinion, Rembrandt was a saint. When I first saw Rembrandt's paintings, they reminded me of the rabbinic statement about the creation of light. When Hashem created the light, it was so strong and luminous that it was possible to see from one end of the world to the other. And Hashem feared that the wicked would make use of it. What did he do? He secreted it for the righteous in the world to come. But from time to time, there are great men whom Hashem blesses with a vision of hidden light. I believe Rembrandt was one of them, and the light of his paintings is that light which Hashem created on Genesis Day.
Excellent. So is that so? Rav Kook would go to art galleries, for his soul resting. His Harchavat Hadat was an art gallery. Many people who have read that quote, and if any of you ever go to London, you should go to the National Gallery. There's a room in the National Gallery called the Rembrandt Room, which is the room that Rav Kook went to. It's maybe 10 paintings by Rembrandt all in one room. Many of them are Tanakh based, and it's a very inspiring place to be. This is not the Moshav Leitzim, this is very much the Harchavat Hadat. I'm so pushed for time. I want to mention very briefly the next one. This is the student Rav Dessler. We've learned in the past, Rav Dessler wrote a lovely book called Yated Ne'emah, wrote a very important book, called Michtav Melial. Michtav Melial is the book written by Rav Dessler, a very important Baal Musar. He was originally a very important mashgiach in Gateshead in England, and then he moved to Israel and he became a mashgiach in Bnei Brak, in Ponevezh. However, listen to this. During his childhood years, Rav Dessler was taught at home and wrote the author of this article. True to the principles of his Rebbe, Rav Simcha Zissel, the boy's father included general studies in the curriculum. Among those were some classics of world literature. One of them, so Rav Dessler told me, was Uncle Tom's Cabin. The reason for this choice is not far to seek. What do we see over here? Do you know what Rav Dessler did in his free time? He read any of you ever read the book Uncle Tom's Cabin? It's a very important book of American literature. It's about slavery. Uncle Tom was a slave. It was like I don't know if we would understand Yetziat Mitzrayim better, but because I think that slavery there and slavery there were very, very different concepts. But like the depth of like human relationships is very powerfully exposed there. We spoke about chess, but over here we see another route to Harchavat Hadat, Bein Hazmanim, Harchavat Hadat, is to read good books, but books of literature, not books of trash, but a book of literature that can help us understand ourselves, help us understand the world a bit better. Like Rav Dessler over here chose the book Uncle Tom's Cabin as a book for inspiration. Bein Hazmanim is an opportunity for us all to find time to read good things. Because we're out of time, I'm not going to look at the last few sources, but the last few sources are talking about television. Nowadays, you might expand that to YouTube or to, like, is there value in watching a film? Are films good or films not good? Is it a waste of time? Is it not a waste of time? It's a very, very complicated question because it's hard nowadays to find films that are appropriate. You follow? Because we mentioned like in the stadium, the issues of tzniut in a stadium, the issues of language in a stadium. Unfortunately, for many, many films nowadays, that would be the same concern. But there is a value, just like in reading a good book, there's also value in watching good films. They also provide you with harachavat hadat. It's not something you do all of the time. It is something you do, after research, rather than just, I've got half an hour, so that's how I'm going to utilize my time. But Bein Hazmanim is a time for harachavat hadat, to expand ourselves, so that after Bein Hazmanim we come back again with even more energy than we had prior to Bein Hazmanim. So I want to conclude with a quick summary and a blessing for all of us. We saw really two extremes. Moshav leitzim, schok, leitzanut, that's all to be avoided. But then we saw Rabbi Baroka in his Anshe Beduche, these great people who have a place in the world to come, and Harachavat Hadat, and just like the body rests, the soul needs to rest too. So it is inevitable, it is essential that we close our Gemaras. There is some time, at the end of the day, that I close my Gemara, and also there are breaks. There's Chol HaMoed, there's Bein Hazmanim. There are times that we close our Gemara. So the challenge is that we have to make sure that we utilize that time effectively. It is a great opportunity for Harchavat Hadat. It is also a great danger of leitzanut and schok. So I want to bless us all during our daily free time, during our weekly free time, and then at the end of a semester during the Bein Hazman as well, that we should have the wisdom to navigate the times when our Gemara is closed, to navigate those times with chokhmah. And if once or twice things don't go quite as we planned, you should view it like those tablets that we choose as kids and realize, that area I need to fix for the next time. I have a break. I'll open my Gemara in the knowledge that the next time I go, I won't fall down that mistake again. And through that, our breaks from the Gemara will become more and more effective and will give us more and more energy so that Be'ezrat Hashem will have the strength for great Torah learning. Yeshar Koach